5,000 in 1 year. I don't know if anywhere where it's occurred, but let's say it did. You'd still get the money for 10,000 students, because that's what you got last year, plus any incremental increase. Now, if that globally exists, the pie always gets bigger. It can never get smaller, which means the taxpayer has to pay more. In education, that whole harmless clause has been in here since about 1972. So think about Bucks County schools. They've grown since then, other than Centennial and maybe Bristol. So when you remove the whole harmless clause and you say we're going to go back to a new form, just even with a new formula, I should back up. We've done two things in the last 2 years that are really important for education. One is we have a funding formula for special ed. Special ed had always been calculated on assumed numbers. We assumed every school had about 15% of their population as needing IEPs. And so we funded them that way. Everybody got the same 15%. 1% for gifted, 15% for IEPs. Well, the problem with that was if you had 7%, you still got funded at 15. And if you had 25, you only got funded for 15. So because our schools are pretty good at special needs students and handling, we tend to attract them. There was an ad at one time in the Russian newspapers in Moscow that said, if you want a good education, send them to Council Rock, send them to Bucks County. You know, that's where you should go. And we're pretty darn good at educating our kids. I'm proud to say that. So last year, the task force came along and said, that's not fair. First of all, special needs have different ranges. Maybe you have a hearing problem, so you need speech class. Well, that's a less expensive item than if you're bound to your quadriplegic, you know, and you need other help. So we've changed that. We're going to base it on numbers, actual numbers, and like that will help Bucks County schools in funding. In basic education, we also came up with a new funding formula that was agreed to by everybody. So if we take that new funding formula, we take out the whole harmless clause, and we distribute the money without regard to that, our schools, by and far, in Bucks County are winners, to about the tune of around 18%. So in other words, your property taxes will go down 18% with this new money paid, only if the school will allow it. But, so what would happen to Philadelphia school? It would actually be about even. They would gain just a little bit. What would happen to the Pittsburgh schools? They would be decimated. You're going to see the numbers in a minute to see how much they spend per school. So we know that removing the whole harmless clause overnight has winners and losers. And there are more losers than there are winners. We just happen to be big winners. So we got to figure out what do we do. Do we just do it with new money so that we can catch up? Do you do it over a period of time? How do you handle this inequity? Well, okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This just talks about 500 school districts, 3,200 traditional public schools, 162 brick and mortar, and 14 cyber charter schools. So that's our public education system. We have 1.7 million kids, K through 12, 7th highest in the nation. We have been declining in size. Many school districts are closing schools. We have 2238 private schools in Pennsylvania with another 330,000 kids. These are statistics ranked by National Education Association. Pennsylvania ranked 43rd in population, 5 to 17, 7th in total instruction staff, 6th in number of teachers, 10th in average salary, 12th in average expenditure. Remember I talked about, I saw an article today where 47? 12th. 5th in high school graduates. So we're a big state. We have a lot of kids in education. Here are some interesting numbers. One of the things that comes up all the time is this theory that if you're in rural areas or you're in center city schools, you're being left behind. You're not being funded properly. You need to give you more money. So what we did was we looked at the best performers These are the schools that have the best results. The ones that spend the 5 most and the 5 least. Now, whenever you see graphic, they're so small, it's a statistical anomaly. It says 0, but there aren't 0 students. It's just so small, it can't be measured. But and these numbers on the side is the amount the state gives per student. That's my handwriting. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to show that in Perry County, they've decided to spend $28,000 a kid, but it's mostly their money. In Lower Merion, it's almost all their money. Same here. Now these are the best performers and spending the least. There are some rural areas, but look at some of the anomalies. Like in Valley View, most of the money is coming from the state. So if I was using them as an example, I'd say, well, Valley View doesn't spend enough money, they should spend more. Well, then their local taxpayers can pay it, because they're picking up like 60, 70% of the money. Here, where do I get half? And then I always throw Philly in, because people in Boxer always assume that Philly gets everything. And so the average state spend is 14.6. Philly's 14.3, they're a little bit below the state average, and we give them about 50% of their money. Okay, let's keep going. This article just says, basically, if you spend more money, it doesn't necessarily give you better results. We just saw that. It's all over the place. It depends upon a lot of things other than dollars spent. Keep going. Same kind of things, return on investments. Basically, the Chamber of Commerce says our system of education can do a lot better. That's the case of something. Go back 1 second. So at least according to the U.S. Chamber, we do an effective job teaching, getting teachers, but we struggle with removing ineffective ones. So I'll segue for 1 minute. We did a bill, the governor did one, that dealt with termination of teachers. The system of evaluating teachers, which was passed about a year ago, was designed to move away from tenure. So the groups all came together, and what they decided was they wanted this range of factors. So if your teacher is being evaluated, your principal participates, but also your test scores for your students. Here's the problem for us. Our schools do well, so ineffective teachers get a bump up in their rating. If you're a poor teacher, you'll be generally needs improvement because the school is good. So we still have a problem getting rid of ineffective teachers. The bill we passed says that what you'll do if you're looking to terminate a teacher, you got to go to the department, you do a ranking within the department, and the first person to go is the one who's doing the course. Mark Klein tells me they have, with all the teachers they have in Council Rock, they don't have one teacher who's failing, even though in his opinion, they're failing in the classroom. And so his opinion was I should have more say, the school should have more say in getting rid of ineffective teachers. So we still have this little battle to deal with. Keep going. We saw this before, that's a repeat. Keep going. Okay. I told you before that there had been this battle. I told you that we agreed originally in our budget, no tax increase, $100 million. Governor wants $410 million. If we got $410 million, how would that impact our schools? So, I've given you a graph, and it's pretty complicated, but basically what it says is, if you take the governor's proposal originally, before the task force did the work, this would be the number. If you took the task force, this would be the number that you would get, and there's the increase. So I think, when we're done, I think what's going to happen is, since we're in New Hope Solbury would get $90,000 more. I don't know what they do with that. Not much. One teacher. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. One new teacher with Benny's. Yeah, you're right. One new teacher with Benny's. Yep. So, you know, is that something to grow about? Council Rock does a little better. Central Bucks, because of its size, does a little better. But those are the increases. It's about 11, a range from 11 to 6% increase. Okay? Keep rolling. We've already been through all that. Keep going. This just shows the numbers that under our increases at Penn State Temple we get. Now, because the budget was vetoed, the trustees will likely have to raise tuition because they don't have that money yet. Okay, keep going. Okay. What this chart does is take the total tax increase against the property tax reduction. We haven't really talked about it, but remember there were 3 items the governor wanted. One was fix the structural deficits, one was more for basic education. We've agreed to that, so here's the 3rd leg on the stool. He wants to give a property tax reduction. Okay? The way the money's going to be driven out, it will be generally this. If you lived in Philadelphia, you get about 160% property tax reduction. But if you live in Bucks County, you'll get maybe 18%. So the question is, what's the total cost going to be? Because there's going to be winners and losers within there. If you have a state, the final proposal is the state income tax increase. Well, if you don't have any income, it's all retirement. Any dollar is going to be better than what you got. But this shows for the average Pennsylvanian, and the source of this information is the independent fiscal office, the average person does not do well, especially in year 1. There's no property tax relief. And I'll show you this in a different way in a moment. Okay, roll. Okay, that chart is really easy to read. Well, what it shows is the tax increases. You've seen that number, the 4.6 and 7. And then here's the property tax reduction. So there's 0 in this year, and that's the net increase. So obviously most of the new revenue is not going towards property tax reduction. Keep going. So one of the questions I get over and over, which is a good question, a snapshot. Where does the money go? If we do this tax increase, where does it go? You heard it was supposed to go to education, but you'll see education is actually on the bottom of the list. It first goes to the property tax relief fund. That $4.75 billion goes into a fund. Nobody gets it the first year. It just sits in this slush fund. Then we make the pension payment. Why is the pension payment on there? Because the governor, instead of keeping it in the general accounting function, pulls it out so he can spend that $1.7 billion elsewhere, and he puts it offline. There's $500 million, I said, sprinkled like Santa Claus around the budget. Everybody gets more, and then education's the last item on that list.
Getting the pension payment. Senator Toomey is always saying that our pension system is broken.
Who said that?
Senator Toomey, and many of the Toomey.
Yep.
So when getting that $1.7 billion out the pension system, well, my question to him was, have you thought of a new way to fund the pension system instead of real estate taxes? Has anybody in the House been working?
Yeah, the one that is most popular for any type of educational funding, that I think most people, I don't want to talk for everybody, that most people think is the fairest, is an income tax increase. That's what most people, if you had to do it. But you can imagine the number of people that really want to vote for a tax increase, particularly when the economy is still sputtering. So the question becomes, when you're dealing with a budget, very complicated thing, where do you hold the line? Where do you extend numbers? there are groups and agencies that haven't had increases in years. So let's just split it apart and look at examples of how this budget gets really complicated. So let's say I'm a social worker and I work at an agency. The first thing that happens to these agencies is we moved them from the Bucks County, Philadelphia region. We said, oh, we're going to put you in a reimbursement category that's Lehigh Valley. Just move them. We'll draw the line, you know, if the economic was the 5-county area, we'll just take Bucks County workers out and we'll pretend that they work in an area where the cost of living is more like Lehigh. What's that?
Why would that happen?
Because somebody's looking to save money. And so the social service agencies reimbursed, that's a great question, are reimbursed on a quarter hourly basis. So the agency that's trying to hire somebody, try and get a nurse now. I mean, what would you have to pay to get a quality nurse? You're going to pay a lot of money. But if your reimbursement rate goes from $12 an hour to $10 an hour, now where are you going to get your nurse? And who's going to take the job? So there's been financial constraints on these organizations for budgetary reasons. It's very easy to move numbers on a chart,
but the people making the budget realize it's important to pay people
and
pay
to
them
get
well.
and to get people and to get good workers. You know, you get, maybe you're a social service agency that has a child that's in home, has some sort of school services, have multiple medical disabilities, I mean, severe, have to have round-the-clock nursing. And we tell that social service agency, keep doing that good job, but we're going to cut you $2 an hour to save money. So one of the beefs we have in Bucks is this issue about where should we be classified in the scheme so you can get quality workers who can live here.
Well, who sets those classifications? The legislature, right?
He does it. Agencies, the secretary. The secretary does. So what we have to do is battle them. Legislature doesn't decide you're in Region 1 or you're in Region 2. The deputy secretary, the secretary of DPW or Human Services sets those rates. And it's something, you know, we're battling because those social service agencies have a tough time finding people in our community that can afford to live here. Our cost of housing, actually, in my opinion, Bucks is higher than Philly. It's higher than Montgomery. But we know if you went to Princeton for the same house, you'd pay even more. So our numbers are pushing up. And so there's another example of how intricate it gets in trying to work through things.
Well, we had residential services at that time.
Mm-hmm.
They continue to increase the regulations, such as no touch, everything like that. So you need to have at least 8 people on 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did was they cut the rate per day. That made about as much sense as cancer.
What he just said is that at Beth Anna, they had certain requirements of number of staffs that they had to have, and then they cut the rate, and that's why you're no longer in the residential. That's why you're not in the residential service business.
Millions of dollars.
So,
In terms of consolidating school districts, that would be the state would say so. In other words, we got 500 districts. They may say, well, this school district has several hundred kids and pays for superintendent. Well, we do the same thing. No, we should have one district, one superintendent.
it becomes,
And
okay.
they do that, I want to mention, because when I first came in, we talked about firehouse. I'm from New York.
Right.
So I know what they do is to save money, they consolidate, and the firemen say, hey, you really got to spend, you know? But I think it's Jersey that has done that. In fact, Pennsylvania, we started off with over 1,000 school districts and they started consolidating.
Yeah, a local example of a difficult scenario is Morrisville. Morrisville is too small to exist. Their per student reimbursement rate is pretty good, but nobody wants to take them. Pennsbury doesn't want them. Council Rock turned them down. The next step, we can't force a school district to take
That's
them.
what I was going to ask.
Yeah, we can't force them. The next thing that'll happen is there'll be a study performed to figure out what the economics are. You know, if you're a school board member, say at Council Rock, as an example, and they had come to approach you and say you should merge, a couple different ways you can merge. You don't necessarily have to move the schools and bus the kids, although in some circumstances that might
move the superintendent from one place to another.
but you can't expect a school board member to vote on the efficacy of that without a financial study of what that would look like and how it would work. And so the reporter called me and wanted to comment on, you know, whether I was disappointed with Council Rock for not doing it. Well, how can I say that I'm disappointed? I don't know what the impact will be. Is it a good financial move? Is it a bad financial move? Does it work? The other thing that happens with school districts and mergers, if the school that's to merge in with mine has lower test scores, what's that do to other factors within the school district? And its reputation. I mean, it's a monstrous problem. So nobody's been willing to take more so far. And at some point in time, we may have to force something, but it's not something. Remember, Pennsylvania is local control. So I'm not going to tell your supervisors what they should do or shouldn't do. You live in Solberry? Okay, so I'm not going to go to them and say, you should shut down that quarry, or you shouldn't shut down that quarry. I wasn't elected to serve that constituency. They weren't. Just like I'm not going to go to your school board and say, you need to hire another teacher, or you need to hire Sally Jones, or you should do that. I'm not going to tell them what to do. They were elected by a different constituency. And think about that. Your township supervisor is elected by Solberry residents. Your school board are elected by Solberry and New Hope, so they serve different people. Now, I serve different people because I'm elected by 5 communities. Those 2 areas, New Hope and Solberry, are just 2 of them. So I shouldn't be mixing, because what do you care if the opinion in Northampton is to do something in Solberry? Well, they have no business with me. So Pennsylvania is really difficult. It's probably the best system of government in that it's local control. And if you have a gripe, you can go to your supervisor, you probably know where they live, and knock on their door. I don't know if I did that as the first week for us. They might be a little intimidated, but you can. You can come to my office. In most states, you got to go to county government, who has less responsibility to you. So we got a good system, but it's really difficult, because when we enact laws in Pennsylvania, we're enacting everybody. And Bucks County is very different than rural Pennsylvania, than the city of Philadelphia, than Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh and Philly are even different from each other, let alone. So it's complicated. We don't like to push people, but on the other hand, I don't like to see Morrisville kind of hung out with what do they do. Sooner or later, somebody's got to, and we do have too many school districts. We probably have too many municipalities. On the pension issue, just as an interesting statistical item, we have more municipal pensions in Pennsylvania than they have in the rest of the entire country. That's how many municipal pensions we have. So one of the things we're getting pushed on municipal pensions as far as savings, there are some plans where it literally costs thousands of dollars per employee to administer because they're so small. So the obvious solution is to consolidate it. But nobody wants to be consolidated with somebody else. They want to rule their own roost. So it's another complication. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And those are in those. The question was, has there been any discussion about defined contribution versus defined benefit? So the TOBASH plan was a combination, pension and a defined contribution. The new plan that is for new hires in the item we pass, all new employees will go into defined contribution plan. And that benefit, which most of the unions are saying is inadequate, is equal to what a federal employee gets. It's about, if you work it out, a federal employee can put away about 10%. 5 on them, 5 on the federal government. Under our plan, you could put about 11.5% away, 5.5 on the employer, and 5.5, 6 on you. So It's very simple. I've been using that as a guide.
Does anybody consider going to a 401k?
Well, that's what we're talking about, yeah, a 401k style plan.
A lot of people got wiped out.
Then there is no liability.
It's capped, the hybrid plan caps at 50. None of these plans have a ultimate cap on salary, where you'd say, okay, over 100,000, you don't pay anything. One of the considerations that's going on, at least on municipal pensions, would be to take the pension argument out of collective bargaining. If that happened for municipal pensions, my guess is a few years later it might happen in state. But what you always worry about is, though, that if something becomes statewide, is it really going to cost you more money? In other words, in the bargaining process, let's say you went to statewide health benefits. You think it costs you more or less? It's always going to cost you more, right? The top ends up becoming the seat, the floor. So it's different, yeah.
We did that in Northampton. And I'm a township supervisor in Northampton, and we moved all new employees into a 401k style program.
Yeah.
Because we saw it just was not sustainable, the municipal pension that we had.
When did you do that?
We did that end of last year.
Meanwhile, you got a big liability.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to the impasse, because that's what this meeting's really about. So we have a terrible impasse. I wanted you to understand what the items were, so you can kind of reflect on it and decide, well, how do you broker this? How do you get it done? Well, obviously somebody has to give in. There's two choices right now. If the governor hasn't moved, and so far he hasn't moved one iota, I either, a majority of the legislature has to agree to those taxes, which once enacted would be devastating, or the governor has to move in a big way, because we are worlds apart. Now, in the interim, what happens to social services? We know that state employees are being paid, so there's no pressure. You'll still be able to go to PennDOT and get your forms filled out, and you'll be able to apply for workers' comp and all that. Or what happens with the social service agencies that when do they crash and burn? And one of the reasons I'm sure these two gentlemen are here, and I've talked to them, so I know what's on their mind, is they're saying, we can't hold on much longer before we got to turn in employees, and we can't provide services. So we're at a pretty critical mass right now. We're in a scary moment.
Do you think are you going to try to reintroduce those 20 line items for a vote again?
It's a great question. So imagine we were all in a caucus room. Caucus is a place where you can talk and discuss. So you can candidly say what you think without being quoted in the newspapers, without fear of publication. So what would we do if we were in a caucus room? I don't know, I bet you we would have 15 different opinions. One of the things I think, and your leader that you elect stands in front and kind of tries to assimilate, well, what do the majority of my members want to do? To me, a stopgap proposal is a potential. Now, it's kind of stealing an idea from the federal government, in the sense that they've been working under continuing resolutions, except that a continuing resolution, most people don't know this, has no legal binding effect on either Congress or the government or the president. There's no effect at all. It's like operating that boat without a rudder. It doesn't mean the agency's going to spend what you told them in the continuing. They can spend anything they want on anything they want without reprisal. That's a scary, you folks I know, who some of the people in the room, can you imagine being on a board and you direct something and the administration does whatever they want? I mean, that's scary. So we could pass a small budget. We could take all those agreed upon items and do it. We could do a 2-month budget. We could do a 6-month budget, like a stopgap. There are a lot of things we can do. So what are we going to do? You know, I don't know. It's disappointing to me that so far in the PR campaign, the governor's had the upper hand. I mean, I read the Courier, not that I necessarily agree with Guy Petrozelli, but he says it's primarily our fault that this budget isn't done. But that means, and if you think that, that's okay, tell me, Scott, it's your fault. You should vote for every one of those taxes. I won't do it, but I'll respect you for saying it. It's your opinion, you're entitled to it, it's America. But, you know, what I'm hearing from my constituents is, I don't want to pay those taxes. Do we really need to do that and make this work? I think most people are okay with an increase in basic ed. I just think that's where they are. I don't think they figured out who's going to pay for it yet. And I think most people figure that's my job to figure out, like, what's the easiest way to get it done. We could, here are the options. We could raise the cigarette tax. I don't smoke, I don't care. We could tax tobacco. We don't have any, we're one of the few states that doesn't tax cigars and smokeless. It only raises about 40 million, and that's not going to do much. The cigarette tax raises you a lot of money, but sooner or later, you raise the tax high enough, nobody's going to smoke and you get less revenue. I mean, or they'll go elsewhere. So those are, you can go to non-broad-based taxes, or you can go to broad-based taxes. Another tax that's been considered that's really devastating to southeast Pennsylvania is something called a gross receipts tax. That would be on HMOs. What would the impact of that be? Basically, the federal government is saying if you don't enact a gross receipts tax on nonprofit entities, insurance companies, Highmark, Independence Blue Cross, then we'll lose the federal Affordable Care dollars. So we'll lose $600 million. If we put the tax on them,
You're going to get it back.
Well, if you put the tax on the healthcare providers, in Western Pennsylvania, you use Gateway and other, which are for-profit companies, so they won't pay the tax. But if you're insured by IDX, it'll cost you $150 per plan participant. So we figured out it would cost the Southeast about $800 million in additional healthcare dollars. So why, if I'm from Bucks County, would I vote for a tax that most of the Southeast is going to pay out of their pocket in increased Blue Cross and Blue Shield premiums?
Taxes ultimately go back to the individual. Corporations don't pay taxes really, because they, in order to pay the tax, they have to generate the income, which means they have to have money coming from whoever their customers are.
Sure. It's a free enterprise system, isn't it? You can't make a profit, you can't be in business.
When Wolf was running for governor, he said that Pennsylvania is the only state that doesn't tax the oil companies. But he didn't give any proof. I don't know if that's true, not true.
No, we have an impact fee. So